The council chamber was massive, a gleaming hall that seemed to stretch forever in every direction. Towering columns of shimmering metal reflected the pale light from thousands of floating lanterns, each one hovering without chains or wires. The air hummed with the quiet energy of alien machinery, and a soft vibration pulsed through the floor, a reminder that this was not just a room but a seat of power that ruled entire star systems. Hundreds of delegates filled the gallery, their faces unfamiliar and often frightening. There were beings taller than any human could imagine, their limbs stretched in unusual angles, their eyes glowing with colors humans had no words for. Others were short, their shapes rounded or angular, their skin patterned like the stars themselves. Some had wings, some had multiple heads, and some had faces that seemed to change every few minutes, and all of them were watching him. John Marlowe, the human, walked slowly into the center of the chamber. He was alone, unarmed, and unprotected except for the faint confidence in his posture. In any other hall, he might have felt small, insignificant even, but here, he carried with him something that no alien could measure with their tools, a human presence that demanded attention. He did not look around in fear. He did not shrink under the stares of creatures that could have torn him apart in an instant. He simply walked forward, his steps steady, his eyes calm. To him, the room was intimidating but not impossible. This was a human way of facing the unknown, with courage, observation, and patience. A murmur spread through the chamber. The delegates were surprised that a human had come alone to speak with the council. Many of them whispered among themselves, unsure how to address him or even whether they should be afraid. For centuries, humans had been considered unpredictable and reckless. They had been studied, feared, sometimes admired, but rarely trusted. And yet here he was, walking with the same ease that anyone might have when entering their own living room. The council president, a massive figure with 6 eyes and a crown of floating crystals, cleared its throat. The sound echoed like thunder and glass breaking at the same time. "Human," it said, its voice a chorus of tones that seemed to speak directly into every mind at once. "You are here to explain your actions in the Sol system. You are accused of interference in interstellar politics. Do you wish to speak before the judgment begins?" Instead, he scanned the room, noting every detail, the way the delegates shifted in their seats, the subtle movements of guards who could have attacked him if ordered, the strange patterns of light that seemed to focus on him as if the room itself were alive. Then he spoke, his voice calm and steady. "I am here not to interfere, I am here to understand. I believe that humans and other species can work together. That is all I wish to say, for now." It was unsettling because humans were unpredictable. Suddenly, a small sound echoed through the chamber, a child's voice. It was high, clear, and commanding in a way that made the room freeze. "Human." The child's hair shimmered in shades of silver and blue, eyes so bright that they seemed to hold entire galaxies within them. The child did not bow, did not show fear, and did not address the council. Instead, the child pointed directly at John. "You, human, you must marry my mother." Aliens leaned forward from their seats, wings flaring, heads spinning, eyes widening. The council president's 6 eyes blinked in unison. "Explain yourself, child," it said, its voice loud and booming, shaking the air. "This is highly irregular. You are not authorized to speak in this forum. My mother is the Empress of the Zeathian Empire. She needs a husband to rule fairly, and I choose this human. He will protect her, guide her, and together they will lead the galaxy." Others muttered that no human could handle even a small world, let alone half a galaxy, but the child did not flinch. John, for his part, did not speak immediately. He looked at the child, then at the gallery, then back at the child. He understood instantly that this was not a prank, not a mistake, not an accident of protocol. This child was serious. And if the child was serious, then this was an opportunity unlike any humanity had ever seen. He knelt down slightly, bringing his eyes level with the child's. "You honor me," he said carefully. "But your mother, this is not my place. I am only human, and humans do not always act wisely. Humans act with courage, with compassion, with logic when needed and heart when needed. You are different. You will not destroy us. You will not fail." Her hair was black as the void between stars, her eyes deep and wise. Her robe shimmered like starlight caught on flowing water. The delegates fell silent, their whispers dying immediately. Some bowed, some froze. Even the council president paused, as if unsure whether it should continue speaking. She walked slowly toward the center, her gaze fixed on John. "You are the human?" she asked, voice soft but carrying across the massive chamber. My son has chosen you. That is exactly why he is worthy, the child said, stepping closer to John. He will bring what no other ruler can, humanity. The child cannot choose the future ruler. He only needed to show the calm steadiness that humans carried into every challenge. In that room filled with thousands of beings, some of whom could crush him with a thought, the child had spoken the truth. Humanity's strength was not in weapons or fleets, but in courage, clarity, and heart. The Empress stepped closer, placing a hand gently on her child's shoulder. Let it be known, she said, her voice steady and commanding, that the human has not yet accepted, but the choice of my heir must be respected. If this human refuses, the Empire may face turmoil. If he accepts, then the galaxy may see something it has never seen before, a human as a guide, a protector, and perhaps a partner. If he accepted, he would marry an empress, rule an empire, and influence the fate of countless worlds. If he refused, he would leave the child's trust broken and perhaps ignite wars he could not prevent. He looked into the child's eyes, shining with unwavering certainty, and he saw something he had never seen before: hope. Not hope for humans, not hope for aliens, but hope for what the galaxy could become if someone acted wisely, if someone acted with heart. John began, his voice steady. I am only human. I cannot promise that I will succeed. I cannot promise that I will always know what to do, but I will try. I will stand with you, child. And I will do my best to protect your mother, your people, and your future. They had expected chaos. They had expected arguments, threats, or even bloodshed. Instead, they witnessed something extraordinary, a human, alone and unarmed, being recognized not by fear, by threat, or by technology, but by trust, by courage, and by heart. The Empress smiled, a quiet strength radiating from her. We shall speak more later, she said to John. For now, your presence is accepted, but your duties are yet to come. The galaxy watches, and so does the Council. Make your choices carefully, human. Humanity had always survived because it refused to give up, because it dared to care, because it dared to act when others hesitated. And now, humanity would have the chance to do something the galaxy had never seen before. The chamber slowly quieted, the murmurs fading into whispers. The child took John's hand without hesitation, their grip firm and full of expectation. Come with me, they said. We have much to do. Walls shimmered with metal that seemed alive, flowing as if a liquid had frozen in motion. Light spilled from hovering orbs, casting shifting patterns on the floor. Everywhere he looked, there were signs of incredible technology, some beyond human understanding. Machines moved silently, attending to the needs of visitors, while delicate gardens thrived indoors, nurtured by unseen forces. The air smelled faintly of flowers and ozone, a combination that was both alien and comforting. The child walked beside John, hand in his, skipping occasionally but never letting go. Do you like it here? The child asked, looking up with bright eyes. I have lived in this palace my whole life, but I have never felt safe until now. But it is the people who matter more than walls or machines. The Empress walked forward with a regal grace that seemed effortless. The room was immense, stretching high above their heads, filled with light and the sound of gentle, flowing energy. At the center, the Empress's throne floated above the floor, supported by technology that made it look as though it were resting on nothing at all. She gestured for John and the child to approach. I must speak with you, John Marlowe, she said softly but firmly. You are now part of a world you cannot yet fully understand. My people, my empire, and my son are all connected in ways humans rarely imagine. You must know the weight of what you are considering. That is all I can offer. Perhaps with you, they will learn it. It is our tradition, something humans will not expect. In the center, a small table displayed the archives of leadership, records of decisions, triumphs, and failures. The child placed a small hand on the table, and the images shifted to show the Empire's greatest challenges. This is where we test the rulers, the child said. Not in battle, not in strength, but in decisions. Every ruler before my mother has faced these trials. Most failed. Your mother changed things, John said quietly. She survived where others did not, but at what cost? Perhaps you can guide her and the Empire toward balance. I will do my best, he said again, and this time his voice carried certainty, not hesitation. Not because I want power, but because I cannot ignore those who need help. That is what humans do. Holograms shifted to show an incoming fleet, vessels unlike any John had ever seen. They moved fast, sleek, and lethal, their weapons poised for attack. The Council does not like what is happening, the Empress said calmly. They fear humans leading our empire. Some of the older systems may try to strike before you can take your place. He had no soldiers, no fleet, no knowledge of galactic combat, and yet he felt a strange calm. This was a challenge, yes, but one that could be met not with force alone, but with strategy and trust. The Empress continued, "You will need to act quickly. Our enemies expect fear. Humans rarely show fear in the way aliens expect. That is your advantage." "I will help," they said. "I know the ways of the palace, the empire, and the fleets. You only need to tell me what to do." But John did neither. Instead, he studied the situation calmly, asking questions, analyzing what was available, and considering the options. First, he focused on diplomacy. He asked the child to send messages to the approaching fleets, not threats, but invitations to talk. "Humans often solve problems before violence," he said. "They listen first." Some hesitated, their commanders confused by the lack of immediate hostility. Some opened communication channels, curious or cautious. John guided the discussions, offering solutions that seemed almost impossible, sharing resources, protecting planets from internal conflicts, creating alliances instead of conquering. The leaders of the fleets were shocked. They had expected threats, manipulation, or ultimatums. Instead, they found reason, fairness, and human decency. Hours passed, but it felt like minutes to John. By the end of the day, the fleets had slowed, withdrawn from aggressive postures, and opened talks for cooperation. The palace, once on high alert, returned to calm. The child clapped quietly, a smile of pride on their face. "You did it," they said. "You saved the empire without fighting. That is what I hoped humans could do. Perhaps this empire can survive and even flourish under your guidance." "Tomorrow the council will meet," they said. "They will test you, try to find flaws, but you have already shown them what a human can do." He understood fully now what the child and the Empress had seen. Humanity was not meant to dominate through fear or force, but to lead through courage, compassion, and cleverness. "I will face the council," he said quietly, "and I will do so as a human. I will do my best for your sake, for your mother's sake, and for all who live in this empire." "That is enough for me," they said. "That is all I need." The Empress watched him quietly, her expression softening. "Tomorrow, the council will test you, but today you have proven something far more important, that humans are not just survivors, but leaders. That may be the most valuable gift any species could offer the galaxy. We will face them as humans always face what is difficult, with courage, thought, and heart." And in the heart of the Zeathian Empire, a human stood ready to face it all. The morning of the council meeting arrived quietly, though tension hung over the palace like a storm cloud. John Marlowe stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city of the Zeathian Empire. Towers of crystal and metal stretched high into the sky, glinting in the pale light of the binary suns. Ships moved in careful formation above the city, military fleets that had once intimidated the galaxy, now waiting for orders. John felt their silent scrutiny, but did not flinch. He had faced fear before, though never on this scale, and he knew that to survive here, he could not act like the others expected. Humans had a different kind of strength, a strength not in power or size, but in clarity of thought, courage, and heart. The child ran up beside him, still full of energy despite the seriousness of the day. "Are you ready?" they asked. "The council will try to break you. They will use questions, threats, even simulations. They want to see if humans can handle responsibility." "I understand. Humans are not always perfect, but we can learn quickly. That is what I will show them." Hundreds of delegates from across the galaxy had already gathered. Many had traveled for light years just to witness this moment, a human standing in judgment before the most powerful council in known space. Some whispered, some laughed, some sneered, and a few looked genuinely curious. The council president, the sick-side being who had addressed John before, stepped forward. Its voice echoed across the chamber. "John Marlowe, human, you stand before us to prove your worthiness. You seek to join the Zeathian Empire as partner to its Empress and as protector of the air. The Council has observed you, and now it will test you. You will face scenarios of governance, diplomacy, and crisis. Your decisions will determine if you are capable of leadership at this scale." Holographic images filled the chamber, showing a distant planet under attack by rebel forces. Fires raged, cities collapsed, and civilians fled in terror. The Council asked, "What is your decision, human? How do you respond?" "If we act with force first, more will die. If we act with understanding first, we may save lives and build loyalty. At the same time, I will open communication with rebel leaders, offering dialogue and compromise. If we succeed, we maintain peace and save lives. If we fail, we adjust and learn. That is how humans solve problems. Holographic rebel leaders were contacted and negotiations began. Slowly, the fires of war began to die down and many cities were saved. The council members watched in stunned silence. They had expected chaos and failure. Instead, they saw a human strategy that no alien had anticipated: protection, negotiation, and adaptability. The next test appeared. A famine struck another world. Crops had failed due to natural disasters and panic was spreading. The council asked, "What would you do, human? How do you prevent collapse?" Humans understand that survival depends on cooperation, not fear. They had assumed humans would act recklessly, yet John's actions prevented disaster without a single battle. The third scenario was more personal. The child's hologram appeared, facing a threat from a hostile faction within the Empire. The council asked, "Would you risk your own safety to protect a child, human? Would you endanger the Empire for family?" John redirected forces, putting himself at personal risk to ensure the child's safety. The hostile faction backed down when it realized the human valued the child above power or conquest. Again, the council was silent. Humans had acted in a way no other species did. They did not negotiate for advantage alone, but for what was right. After hours of simulations, debates, and questions, the council paused. Some delegates were clearly frustrated. Others were thoughtful. Many whispered that humans could not be understood. They were unpredictable, yes, but unpredictability had produced results that no rigid system of rules could achieve. The Empress entered the chamber quietly, placing her hand on the child's shoulder. "The human shows qualities our empire has long forgotten," she said softly. "He does not lead through fear nor through domination. He leads through thought, courage, and care. Perhaps this is what we need. You may have shown the capacity to guide, but leadership requires more than strategy. It requires endurance, morality, and the ability to act under pressure. Are you ready for the final test?" The council demanded, "You must choose priorities. Which do you save first? Which do you let fall? The future of the galaxy rests on your judgment." But humans had a skill others often lacked: discernment under pressure. "I will act in phases," he said. "First, we protect lives, children, elders, and those unable to defend themselves. Next, we stabilize governments to prevent further collapse. Finally, we create alliances to strengthen regions for the long term. This way, we save the most lives and lay the foundation for lasting peace." Relief efforts reached worlds in immediate danger. Political leaders were guided toward compromise, not punished. Fleets and resources were distributed efficiently. Slowly, the holographic galaxy stabilized, not perfectly, but far better than anyone had expected. The council was silent. Even the skeptical delegates could not deny the results. John had faced impossible scenarios, decisions that could have destroyed the Empire, and he had succeeded not through force, not through fear, but through thought, courage, and compassion. Finally, the council president spoke. "Human, you have passed tests no other species could complete in such a manner. You do not act like other species, and that is why you succeed. Perhaps humanity is a different kind of power, one the galaxy has underestimated. That is rare among rulers, and it may be exactly what this empire and the galaxy needs." He had not relied on technology, on fleets, or on fear. He had relied on what humans do best: thinking clearly, acting decisively, and caring for life. As the council dispersed, whispers followed him. Aliens debated what they had seen. Some still doubted humans, but many began to question their own assumptions. A human had not conquered, had not threatened, and yet had changed the outcomes of crises that even the most experienced rulers had failed to manage. The Empress and the child followed him quietly. "Tomorrow," she said, "we must address the next challenge, integrating you fully into the Empire, ensuring that our people accept your role. But for today, you have earned respect, even if grudgingly, from the galaxy. Then the galaxy will never forget the human who chose to lead not with fear, but with heart." And in that, he had already begun to change the course of the galaxy. The day of the wedding dawned quietly, though the city below hummed with anticipation. John Marlowe stood in the private chambers of the palace, dressed in ceremonial robes that shimmered faintly with the same strange light as the walls themselves. The garments were heavy and formal, yet surprisingly comfortable, and they marked him as a person of importance. Not just a visitor, but someone who now carried responsibility for an empire. He looked out the window at the spires of the capital, gleaming in the soft light of the twin suns, and thought about how far he had come. From a human diplomat standing alone in a council chamber, he was now on the threshold of becoming part of a royal family, a partner to an empress, and a father in the eyes of a child who had chosen him. The child entered quietly, as if sensing his thoughts. "Are you nervous?" they asked, their voice soft but steady. "Humans usually are before big events." "I am aware that this is important," he said. "But nervous, not exactly. This is a challenge, yes, but it is not something I cannot handle. Humans face challenges all the time. This is simply one of a different kind." "But they will not find any in you." "Today is not only a wedding," she said. "It is a statement. The galaxy will watch, and your actions will influence how my people and others perceive humanity. And I will act with care, not just for tradition, but for the future of the Empire and all who live within it." The delegates of the council sat in orderly rows, their expressions varied: curiosity, skepticism, even quiet excitement. All eyes were on John. The Empress approached him, moving with the quiet elegance of a ruler who had faced countless challenges. Her gaze held both warmth and strength. John felt no intimidation, only respect. He realized then that leadership was not about overpowering others. It was about inspiring trust and confidence. Humans understood this instinctively, and that was why he had been chosen. The child stood between them, looking up at John with wide eyes. "Do you promise to protect my mother?" the child asked. "Do you promise to guide her and the Empire with care?" "I will do my best to protect those who cannot protect themselves, and to lead in a way that is fair and just." John and the Empress exchanged vows, words that were understood not only by humans but by every species present. These words were about responsibility, protection, guidance, and unity. There were no threats, no displays of power, only promises to act with wisdom and care. As the ceremony concluded, a sudden alert echoed through the palace. Outside, fleets of alien ships had begun to gather. They were not part of the wedding celebration. Some came from distant systems, their commanders curious, others hostile. The human presence at the head of the empire had already caused unease, and now some feared that the marriage would upset the balance of power. The council had predicted this. They had expected trouble, and the empress had prepared for it. But John realized that this was another opportunity to show what humans could do. He did not panic, did not demand force, and did not issue threats. He simply observed, assessed, and acted. "Send messages," he said calmly. "Invite the leaders to talk, not to fight. Show them that the Empire now values dialogue over dominance. Humans solve problems by reasoning first, not by attacking first." John guided the discussions with calm authority. "We can share resources," he said. "We can protect neutral worlds. We can prevent unnecessary bloodshed. If we act together, we all gain stability. If we fight, we all lose." A few withdrew entirely, unwilling to risk conflict when the human offered a better path. By the end of the day, the city was safe, the fleets were in dialogue, and the threat of immediate war had been averted, not by intimidation, but by human reasoning and trust. The council delegates watched silently. They had expected the worst and received the best. Even the most skeptical began to reconsider their assumptions about humans. Here was a species that could face danger without fear, act decisively without cruelty, and lead without seeking domination. The wedding celebration resumed quietly, the tension lifted. Citizens of the Empire began to gather, curious and cautious. Many had never seen a human up close, and even fewer had witnessed one in a position of such responsibility. Yet they felt something familiar in John's presence, a sense of fairness, honesty, and courage. Throughout the celebration, John moved among the people, listening, observing, and engaging. He did not flaunt his role. He did not demand attention. He simply spoke with those around him, understanding their needs, fears, and hopes. Humans had a unique way of connecting, and even in this alien empire, that connection was felt. The Empress watched him quietly, noting the subtle but profound changes in the mood of the crowd. "He is unlike any leader I have seen," she whispered to herself. "He does not command with fear. He inspires with presence, understanding, and heart. Perhaps this is what the galaxy needs." John stood on a balcony with the child and the Empress, looking out at the city that now accepted him, cautiously but with growing trust. "The council will not be silent forever," the Empress said. "Some will resist, some will challenge your ideas, but today you have shown the Empire a different way. You have proven that leadership does not require fear or force. It requires clarity, courage, and compassion. That is rare among rulers." That is all I can promise, and it may be enough to change this empire. Challenges would come, enemies would act, and decisions would weigh heavily. But for the first time, he felt the strength of his humanity as a force greater than any weapon, greater than any fleet, greater than any fear. The Empress placed a hand gently on his shoulder. "Tomorrow, the Council will meet again," she said. "They will observe, they will question, and they will challenge you. But remember this, you have already done what no other human or alien could. You have changed the perception of humanity. You have shown that humans can lead with heart. That is power in its truest form. We will show them the strength of humans, not through fear, but through courage, understanding, and compassion." And now, John Marlowe was ready to lead not just with intelligence, but with the heart that had always been humanity's greatest weapon. The stars above glimmered as if acknowledging a new era, a time when humans were not only part of the galaxy but a force of understanding and hope. And in that quiet moment, John realized that the wedding was only the beginning. A human had entered the heart of an empire, and with patience, courage, and empathy, he would change the galaxy forever. Years had passed since John Marlowe had first stepped into the council chamber. Alone, a human among the most powerful species in the galaxy. The empire he now helped lead had grown stronger, not through fear or domination, but through understanding, collaboration, and careful guidance. The Zeathian Empire, once rigid and cold, had become a place where justice and compassion mattered as much as strength. John stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out at the capital city. The towers gleamed under the twin suns, and ships moved in orderly patterns across the sky. They no longer resembled the fleets of intimidation they had once been. Now, they carried supplies, escorted diplomats, and ensured the safety of citizens across the empire. John felt a quiet pride. He had never sought power, but he had chosen responsibility, and that choice had changed the lives of millions. The child, now older, stood beside him. Their hair, still shimmering with silver and blue, had grown longer, and their eyes held wisdom beyond their years. They had learned much from John, not just strategy or leadership, but the human way of thinking, seeing value in life, trusting in others, and acting with courage and heart. "Do you think the galaxy will ever accept humans fully?" they asked. John smiled. "It already has in ways you may not realize. Some still doubt, but many are learning that humans lead differently. We do not rule through fear. We lead through understanding. That is something most species have forgotten, but it is our strength. You remind us that leadership is not about control. It is about responsibility, care, and courage." "I want to be like you, Father," they said. "I want to lead with heart, not just with rules or weapons. Will you teach me?" Humans are not perfect, but we try, and that is enough to change the world. Other species had observed his actions over the years. They had watched as conflicts were resolved without war, as famine and rebellion were managed with fairness, and as trust grew between worlds that had long been enemies. Some had doubted humans, expecting chaos or cruelty. Now they questioned their assumptions. They began sending emissaries, seeking advice, and requesting alliances. Humanity, once underestimated, had become a source of guidance, not through dominance but through wisdom and empathy. In the palace gardens, John walked with the child, discussing strategy and philosophy. "Some leaders focus only on power," he said. "They think strength is everything, but strength without care is dangerous. Humans know that. That is why we survive, and why we can lead in ways others cannot. But if you act with heart, you will guide your people well." The humans' approach to leadership had demonstrated something no other species had considered, that morality, courage, and reason could be as powerful as fleets and weapons. One day, a delegation from a distant system arrived unexpectedly. Their fleet was small, but their message was urgent. A nearby planet was facing civil unrest that threatened to erupt into a war that could destabilize the region. John gathered his advisors, the Empress and the child, and began planning a response. "We will not attack," he said firmly. "We will send diplomats and peacekeepers. We will protect civilians first, then work to mediate the conflict. Violence is not the first option. Humans act with reason and care, and that is our advantage. That is how we lead without conquering." The delegation returned, amazed and grateful, and their people began to question the old ways of ruling through fear and force. As the years went by, John's influence spread further. Humans were still rare in the galaxy, but their approach to leadership became respected and even sought after. Young leaders from other species came to study human methods. They wanted to understand why a single human could change the course of an empire and influence the galaxy so profoundly. The answer was simple. Humanity valued life, reason, courage, and heart above all else. The child grew into a capable leader, learning from John and the Empress. They began taking on responsibilities of their own, guided by human principles. "I understand now," the child said one evening, standing on the balcony beside John. "Leadership is not just about rules or power. It is about care, decisions, and courage. Humans taught me that. That is how we change the world. They showed us a different way to lead, a way that honors life, respects others, and values courage and care." The galaxy was no longer a place ruled solely by fear or conquest. Wars were fewer, alliances stronger, and species once enemies now learned to cooperate. Humans had shown a new path, and even those who doubted them began to follow it. The child, now a young leader in their own right, would carry these lessons into the future. John turned to the child. "Remember this," he said. "A leader's power is not measured by how many they control, but by how many they protect, inspire, and guide. Humans survive not because we dominate, but because we care. That is our gift, and now it can be yours too. And one day, I will teach others the same lesson." He had proven that humans were more than what others thought, unpredictable, compassionate, clever, and courageous. He had shown that one human, acting with heart and reason, could inspire change across an entire galaxy. The child squeezed his hand. "Thank you, Father," they said, "for everything." "No, thank you," he said. "You remind me why humans matter, not just on one planet but across the stars. And now your generation will carry it forward." Ships returned to their stations, citizens settled peacefully, and the empire, once rigid and cold, thrived under the guidance of humans and the lessons they had taught. The galaxy had changed, quietly but profoundly. Not through war, not through fear, but through courage, reason, and heart, the qualities that made humans unique. John Marlowe stood with the child and the Empress, gazing at the stars, knowing that humanity's legacy had begun. And for the first time, the galaxy truly understood what humans could be. The stars seemed to shine brighter, as if acknowledging a new era, a time when humans were not conquerors, but leaders, teachers, and guides. And in that quiet light, John knew one simple truth. Humans had survived, humans had grown, and humans had changed the galaxy forever.